Welcome back, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Always a pleasure to have you all with us. We were thinking about what to talk about today, and, well, you know how a lot of people, even those who are like super fluent in English, get really nervous when it comes to the IELTS exam.
Oh, for sure.
It's almost as if the whole exam environment just ramps up the pressure
Yeah.
so much that even familiar English starts to feel a bit strange. Have you noticed that?
It's totally true. And it makes sense, right? I mean, for a lot of people, the IELTS isn't just a regular test. It can have a huge impact on their lives, jobs, studies, even immigration.
Right, right.
So when you've got so much writing on it, it's understandable that anxiety levels go through the roof. We've actually seen it firsthand. People who speak English beautifully in everyday life suddenly freeze up when they're in the exam room. It's like their true abilities get completely masked by those exam day nerves.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly why we thought it would be super useful to do a deep dive on this topic today. We've gone through a bunch of research, and we've basically compiled a toolkit of sorts full of practical tips and techniques to help you guys manage that stress and nervousness, specifically when it comes to the IELTS.
Yeah, the
We
idea.
want to give you some real-life tricks and simple strategies that you can use both before the exam and during the actual test itself.
Mm.
Because, and this is something we saw consistently in the research, feeling confident is one of the biggest assets you can have when you walk into that exam room. Wouldn't you agree?
Couldn't agree more. And what's really interesting is when you look at why this nervousness is so powerful, it's like this perfect storm of different anxieties all hitting at once. The research we looked at highlighted a few key drivers. Like, firstly, there's this basic fear of making mistakes, which is pretty natural in any situation where you're being evaluated, right?
Right, of course.
Then you've got this very real concern of being judged, especially in the speaking module where you're actually face to face with the examiner.
Oh, yeah.
And then on top of that, there's this practical worry of going blank or getting hit with topics you just haven't prepared for.
It's like all of our anxieties about performing well and communicating effectively,
Yeah.
they just get magnified, right?
Exactly.
Because you're putting yourself out there, your language skills are being scrutinized, and the results can actually have real consequences.
Yeah.
But, something that really stood out to us in the research was this point that IELTS examiners are actually trained to assess your English language proficiency based on very specific criteria.
Yeah, that's key.
You're not, analyzing your life choices or making personal judgments about you.
No.
And I think just keeping that in mind can help to take some of that intense personal pressure off.
Totally. And another really important skill is being able to recognize those telltale signs of stress as they pop up during the exam itself.
Oh, interesting.
The research pointed out several common physical and mental responses that can happen. Think about it. That racing heart, sweaty palms, those classic fight or flight responses.
Yeah, we've all been there.
But also, mentally, brain fog, struggling to find the right words, maybe talking too fast out of nervousness, or even stuttering.
Oh, totally. I think we've all felt that kind of pressure in different situations, haven't we? Like that moment when your mind just goes blank.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually kind of comforting to know that these are pretty normal reactions when you're under pressure. The key takeaway here, though, isn't to try to completely eliminate these feelings. I mean, that's probably not realistic. It's more about developing strategies to manage and control them so they don't end up sabotaging your performance.
Absolutely. So let's dive into some of the actual techniques you can use to handle stress before you even step foot in the exam room. And a really crucial point that kept coming up in the research is the power of good, solid preparation.
Makes sense.
Basically, the more prepared you are, the more confident you'll feel, and therefore, the less likely you are to get overwhelmed by anxiety.
Yeah.
And that means consistent, focused practice across all four skills: speaking, writing, listening, and reading.
So it's kind of like preparing for a big presentation, right?
Exactly.
The more you rehearse and the more familiar you are with the material, the more confident and in control you'll feel when the actual day comes. Our research also emphasized the importance of getting enough sleep in the days and weeks leading up to the exam.
Oh, sleep is huge.
Yeah. It can be tempting to pull all-nighters and cram at the last minute, but often that just backfires, leaving you feeling more stressed and less able to concentrate.
Absolutely. Sleep is crucial for your brain to function properly and for you to regulate your emotions effectively.
Right.
And then on the mental side of things, the research really stressed the importance of actively challenging those negative thought patterns and consciously trying to cultivate a more positive inner dialogue. So instead of dwelling on all the things that could go wrong, Try to mentally rehearse successful scenarios and visualize yourself doing well.
It's that whole power of positive thinking idea, right?
Right.
It might sound a bit cliche, but there's actually a lot of psychological evidence to support it. If you're constantly telling yourself you're going to struggle, that negative self-talk can actually become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, absolutely.
The research also advises against doing any frantic last-minute revision. That panicked cramming right before the exam can actually just increase your anxiety levels without really improving your knowledge.
Right. And building on that, it's really important to avoid comparing yourself to others. Everyone learns languages at their own pace, and focusing on how other people are doing will likely just make you feel more anxious and doubtful about yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The best approach is to concentrate on your own progress and the strengths you've already developed.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about practical things you can do to manage stress during the speaking test itself. I think this is often the module where people feel the most pressure because it's so direct, that face-to-face interaction.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
One surprisingly simple but super effective technique that the research highlighted is the power of just taking a deep breath before you start speaking.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's like a quick and easy way to calm your nerves and regain your composure.
That short pause, that conscious act of breathing in and out fully, can really make a difference in how you feel physically.
Right.
And it's also been suggested that smiling can actually help.
Really?
It might feel a bit forced if you're super nervous, but even a small smile can help to relax your facial muscles and make you seem more confident and approachable.
Interesting. Now, another really practical tip from the research addresses a common worry. What happens if you don't understand a question the examiner asks?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
So instead of just freezing up or trying to bluff your way through an answer you're not sure about, it's perfectly fine, actually encouraged, to politely ask the examiner to repeat the question.
Oh, for sure.
Phrases like, "Could you please repeat the question?" are totally appropriate. There's no penalty for asking for clarification.
Absolutely not. It's much better to make sure you've understood the question correctly than to risk going off topic or giving an inaccurate answer because you misunderstood something.
Exactly.
The research also strongly advises speaking at a natural pace, not too fast. When people get nervous, they tend to rush their words, which can make it harder for the examiner to understand and can also lead to more mistakes.
That's true. Now, what about those inevitable mistakes that might happen during the speaking test? I mean, it's pretty much guaranteed that everyone will make a slip up here and there, right?
Yeah, of course.
The research offers a really helpful perspective on this. Don't let a small mistake throw you off completely. One grammatical error or a slightly awkward phrase isn't going to ruin your whole test.
No, not
The key is to correct yourself smoothly and then just keep going. They even gave an example in the research. Like if you say, "He go to school," you can immediately correct yourself and say, "Sorry, he goes to school."
Yeah.
That shows that you're aware of your language and that you can self-correct.
Exactly. It demonstrates that you're actively paying attention to how you're using the language.
Okay, so let's touch on some strategies for managing stress in the other IELTS modules. Listening, reading, and writing.
Okay.
For the listening test, the research really emphasized the importance of staying focused and trying to ignore any distractions.
Yeah, that can be tough.
It's easy to get thrown off by a sudden noise or a word you don't recognize, but the advice is to try to refocus your attention on the audio as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. And for the reading section, the guidance was to skim and scan the texts first to get a general idea of what they're about.
Right.
And importantly, not to freak out if you come across words you don't know. You can often figure out the meaning from the context, and it's more important to understand the overall message and answer the questions than to know every single word.
Makes sense.
And then in the writing module, they really stressed the importance of planning your answers before you start writing and then managing your time carefully across the different tasks.
Right.
Good time management is a huge stress reducer in itself. Knowing you have a plan and that you're using your time wisely can prevent that feeling of being rushed and overwhelmed as the clock is ticking down.
Totally. The research also shared some quick and easy relaxation techniques that you can use both in the lead up to the exam and even during a break if you start to feel anxious.
Oh, yeah, like what?
Simple, deep breathing exercises where you take slow, deep breaths, hold them for a moment, and then exhale slowly and completely can have a really calming effect on your nervous system.
Those are great.
And then there's the power of positive affirmations.
Right.
Consciously repeating positive statements to yourself like, "I am well prepared," or "I can handle this," can really boost your confidence and counteract those negative self-doubting thoughts.
Yeah, that's so true.
Another interesting technique they mentioned was visualization.
Oh, I like that one.
It's about mentally picturing yourself successfully completing each section of the IELTS exam and feeling good about your performance.
Right.
Creating that positive mental image can help to reduce anxiety about the actual exam experience.
It's basically training your mind to focus on the positive outcomes you want, rather than dwelling on potential negative ones.
Exactly. The research even included a little role-play scenario that addressed a very common fear. What if you completely blank and forget everything you wanted to say during the speaking test?
Oh yeah, that's a scary one.
They had Priya acting out, feeling totally stuck, and asking for advice on what to do.
And what did they say?
The suggested response was so reassuring. They said it's perfectly okay to take a moment, maybe smile a little, and just say something honest like, "I'm a little nervous, but I'll do my best." They said examiners actually appreciate that kind of honesty and effort.
Yeah, it makes the whole interaction feel more human.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that examiners are people too.
Yeah.
And finally, the research ended with some really important words of encouragement.
Oh, I like that.
The main message was that the IELTS exam, while important, is not the be-all and end-all. It's ultimately just an assessment of your English communication skills.
Right.
Your goal should be to communicate effectively, not to try to achieve some impossible level of perfection.
That's a good point. It takes some of the pressure off.
It does. And the final takeaway from the research was that feeling nervous in these kinds of situations is a totally normal human experience.
Totally.
What separates successful test takers is their ability to acknowledge that nervousness and then use strategies to manage it effectively.
Absolutely. And now, armed with these insights and techniques, you, our listener, are much better equipped to handle those exam day nerves.
Right.
Remember, a combination of thorough preparation, a positive mindset, and the use of those practical stress management techniques can make a huge difference in your IELTS performance.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, our main focus today has been on helping you tackle and overcome the anxiety that can sometimes overshadow your English skills during the IELTS exam, so you can approach it with more confidence and clarity.
Stay calm.
Stay cool.
IELTS is yours.
Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found these strategies helpful as you prepare for your IELTS exam. Stay tuned for more in-depth discussions coming soon.